come up with a theory.
But I always ask the water, are you willing and able to come to the surface to serve the project at hand or to serve the house that's about to be built? But I always ask the water. The capstone, the two capstones, that second rock would have flown across the English Channel and I would have been in France. So that's how transportation happened for some people, ancient times. If you go to Mexico, they have a myth. Every child ought to learn to dowse by the time they're 5. Right? We use wood for everything. So if we treat it with great respect and appreciation, then we're going to have the highest relationship with all of nature. We're not separate from nature. We chose to be on this planet, and we chose to take the body we've got, even though, it's not as tall as I'd like it, or, whatever else is going on. We're here.
It's deeper than that. It's deeper than the aesthetic connection that we see in the moment, right?
Yes, and it's deeper than the physical. It's not just physical, it's emotional or spiritual. So that the intelligence, the water.
Hey, Fire Tribe. Welcome to Rising from the Ashes. Hope you had a wonderful week. Hope you had some great experiences during the heightened energies of the holidays. Today's going to be a great episode with Marty Cain. She is a experienced dowser. She comes from a family of dowsers from Lithuania, actually. And we get into that story a bit here. We're following the theme of paranormal and earthen energetics. So you shall find this episode fits into such a theme. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It means so much. And also want to thank everybody who's been tuning in to the Sunday Slow Burn. If you're unfamiliar, we have a YouTube channel that we do a live stream every Sunday. And we cover different topics, and it's actually an open call platform, so if you are keen on the topics that we're going to be talking about, you can actually jump into the chat. It makes for an incredible weave of fun and tantalizing information. It is very, very nice, and so I want to thank everybody who has been showing up on Sundays. Thank you guys so much. It's been a wild ride, and we've made some cool connections on that. Last week we just did the history of wizards, or some of our favorite wizards throughout history, and upcoming to get ready for our themes into the year of 2023 of ancient Ireland and snake symbolism and all of that fun stuff. We're going to be talking about the fae folk and the feminine and masculine sides of that. So like 1 week we'll focus on the history and some of the folklore and mythos of the fairies and that realm in the fae and ancient Ireland, and then the next week we'll focus on characters and creatures like the leprechaun and the green man, and see how they kind of flow together, and have an entire episode dedicated to just one of those things so we can get a real big deep dive on it. That's how we like to do it around here. So My friends, thank you so much for tuning in to Sunday Slow Burn, and also everybody on the Telegram group chat. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome. Telegram is how we post a link so you can join into the chat on YouTube. So it's all connected. Absolutely. And the Patreon has been doing great. We've got some new subscribers to the Patreon. I want to thank you guys so much. I hope you've been enjoying the dopamine deep dive episodes that we've been putting on there with some of our other buds, and hope that you're finding the Patreon content to be entertaining and resourceful, because there's some real juicy stuff that we're putting on there, and I love it. And of course, I must promote the other new show called Moon Mysteries. It's all about mysteries of the moon with Kaylee Burkana, who has been a guest on this show before. She's been on the Patreon. She's also done some of our news segments. She's an astrologer, and she's a great friend. And we have teamed up to do a new show dedicated to the mysteries of the moon. So I hope you guys go and check that out. I know a lot of you already have, and thank you guys so much for the support. It's a really good one. I love it. I love just focusing on the moon. There's something so mysterious and tantalizing about it. And we will have shows coming out for months and years, because there's endless amounts of mysteries about the moon. So we'll always have things to talk about. Wow. Well, yes, of course. Thank you guys so much. Getting ready for today's RFTA news segment. We have Adam Stokes back in the house, ready with some ancient knowledge for you guys, an ancient RFTA news segment. Oh, I'm so sorry. Before I forget, I want to introduce you to Vision Switch Space. Get some clairvoyant work done. Get some psychic and energy work, a past life reading, psychic hygiene, dental floss your joints that connect you and your spirit together, and see what effects it has on you. That's what I do with my friend Sabiah Sogard over at Vision Switch. She's awesome, and I've been working with her as my personal psychic for a couple of years now, few years now, we'll say. We've been friends for longer than that, but I've actually delved into this work with her for those few years, and it's been amazing. And she's offering a discount to you guys, so go and check it out. Get some work done. Let me know how you like it. Let Dan know how you like it. Let us know on the Telegram, and I hope you get more, because when we work on these energetic and spiritual things consistently, just like magical invocations and working out your physical body at the gym, or reading, consistently, when we do these things consistently, we have great results. Now, when we do things every once in a while, it's a fun experience and it can be a great result, sure, but the same sense, it's not as concrete of a solution that you might find if you were doing it every night. For instance, if you were stargazing every night to get to know the constellations, or to study your area of the stars that's, in by your house, or by an area that you go camping, so on and so forth. If you're not doing it consistently, you don't get familiar with that information, and things don't start to change in your mind frame. So you guys know all this stuff, but it's always fun to talk it out, because that's what community's for. And so that's why she is offering the Fire Tribe community a discount to get some of the psychic work done with her. And like I said, email us to let us know how that went. And I want to give another shout out to a Fire Tribe listener that sent a personal email to us. That was really sweet. Thank you so much for doing that. It was really great to hear that we had somebody living on the island of Barbados and was enjoying the show. The island of Barbados. there are Fire Tribe's listeners on awesome islands in the Atlantic Ocean. Like, that's so amazing. And it fills Dan and I's heart up with joy to know that that you guys enjoy the work and the show. So just a personal thank you. And it means so much, like I've said many times before, and I'll say it many times again and after. Hope that you guys have a beautiful rest of your day. I hope that you guys find a deeper interest into dowsing after this episode. And I hope that you get to question your reality, because that is the fun part of life. So let's get on to it with some RFTA.
Hello, what's up, Fire Tribe? It's Danny Knocky Dan. Welcome to Rising from the Ashes. Roman is not here today. This is RFTA News, and we're here with Adam Stokes. Adam, how you doing, man? Long time no see.
I'm doing good. Yeah, long time no see. Good to be back. Good to see you.
What have you been
But
up to
everything is
lately?
going well on my end.
Excellent.
Busy as heck, man. Just teaching. I recently got a job at the same school as a reference librarian, which is awesome because that's closer to my dream of actually becoming a librarian. I get my
Yeah.
library science degree in December. So that's been awesome, but it's just meant everything. I like have no time for like anything outside of teaching and being a librarian. So
Yeah.
really busy, but busy in a blessed way, busy in a cool way.
Excellent, man. I just went to a bookstore today and picked up a couple books. One of them is it's called A New World Atlas. It's a big, huge book. It's probably like 18 inches wide and like 20 inches long.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
And it's like huge, man. And it has a lot of the old maps from the old world in it. And then another one I got was I'll go grab it.
Yeah.
The Vinland Map and the Tartar Relation by R.A. Skelton.
I've heard that name before. Skelton. He was is he a cartographer?
I'm not sure.
That name sounds really familiar.
But then here's the
Oh, whoa, that's a big baby. Yeah, those maps are amazing. What they thought of like the New World and stuff, even though it hadn't quite been explored by Columbus, but they retained memories of it from when people before Columbus had crossed the Atlantic. So those maps are fascinating, man.
Yeah, this
Ooh.
place right here is called Magellanica. You ever heard of Magellanica? I
I've heard of
haven't.
Magellan.
Yeah, Francis.
I've never heard of that place though. So
Well, they have a map of it in there.
fascinating. So
Yeah, it's crazy. I like even some of the older maps that have like I don't know if you've seen, but they have like the lion, and then inside of the lion is a map. It like
oh,
makes the
so
shape
there's
of a
a
lion.
map inside of a map.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know.
interesting.
I don't know what they were doing back then, but
Well, they clearly knew that something was, across the sea and across these oceans and across these waters. They just didn't. They, like I said, retained that memory uh, that memory had been passed down from generations to generations. But the way that they envisioned the new world to be is kind of crazy.
sure, man. What do you got for us today, Adam?
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Dead Sea Scrolls. They've come back into the media recently. I know we were talking about some of the new decipherment of some of the Dead Sea Scroll fragments, but I had, my background's in biblical studies and Old Testament,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to see the Dead Sea Scrolls in person many years ago in both Kansas City and in Philadelphia. There was like a traveling exhibit,
Oh
and I
wow.
got to uh, see them up close. It was a really amazing experience. But I'd kind of forgotten about the Dead Sea Scrolls until recently, both with the new stuff that's come out and when I was at the Association for Research and Enlightenment. Edgar Casey and the ARE, they've done a lot of work on the Dead Sea Scrolls, and there's actually a book. Let me go get it.
Mm-hmm.
That was given to me as part of my participation in the conference. Edgar Casey on the mysterious
Mm.
Essenes. So the Essenes are basically the Dead Sea Scroll community. Now, in biblical studies, that's more controversial. Some people just call them the Dead Sea Scroll sect, and others say, the Essenes were a different sect. I take the view they were one and the same group. But if you ever went to a Society of Biblical Literature conference, there's a whole debate. People break out into fistfights over, whether we just call them the Dead Sea Scroll sect or the Essenes. But to me, they're one and the same. And for people who aren't familiar with the Dead Sea Scrolls, they are our earliest biblical manuscripts in Hebrew. Most of our English Bibles are taken from a very late manuscript, the Masoretic text, which is a medieval manuscript dating to around the 10th century CE. But the Dead Sea Scrolls date to around between the 2nd century BCE and 70 CE when the Romans came
Mm.
and destroyed Jerusalem, and they basically ransacked the surrounding area. And the Dead Sea sect or the Essenes basically are eliminated; they go out of existence. But their writings were preserved in clay jars. Those were found in 1946 and the 1940s. So we have a really good idea of what the Bible was like, at least the Old Testament, in the centuries right before Christ, and even in the 1st century CE. And so we can kind of reconstruct what a lot of source critics, text critics do of the Bible, try to reconstruct what the earliest text would be, which in many ways differs at times from what the Masoretic text is, which is the basis for, like I said, the basis for our English Bibles.
Can you tell us a little bit about who the Essenes are and what when did how long were they around for?
Yeah, they were around for a couple of centuries. They were kind of a dualistic, I would even call them kind of a Gnostic
Mm.
Jewish sect. They believed in the children of light, which they believed they themselves were, versus the children of darkness. And their leader was a dude called the Teacher of Righteousness, which a lot of people have tried to identify. Some people say it was John the Baptist. Some people even say it's Christ himself. I don't think Jesus was really associated with the Essenes, but John the Baptist seems to be, because a lot of his asceticism, his vegetarianism, his walking around butt naked, that kind of reflects some of the asceticism that we get in the Dead Sea Scroll text.
Mm. I heard a story about like Jesus and who was it that he raised from the dead?
Lazarus.
Lazarus. I heard that was kind of like a scene kind of motif of bringing him into the light out of the darkness and not necessarily raising him from
Yeah,
the
the
dead.
Johannine Christianity is very similar. So you get that story in the Gospel of John, and Johannine Christianity probably was influenced very much by Essene theology, Dead Sea
Mm.
Scroll
Hmm.
theology. So even though Jesus himself, we don't know what his association was with the Essenes, if he had an association with it. Whatever the sect that emerges, the type of Christianity that emerges from Jesus's apostle, which one of Jesus' apostles, John, is very similar to Dead Sea Scroll theology with the light and the dark. And a lot of biblical scholars suspect that that community was in conversation with the Dead Sea Scroll community towards the last decades of the Dead Sea Scroll community, the Essenes' existence.
Where did they exist? Where were they predominantly located?
Yeah, around the Dead Sea. So that area, really kind of the deserted part. So we think of Galilee, for example, where Jesus was, as kind of this country, bumpkin place, apart from Jerusalem, which was kind of the main city, kind of the
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia of our time. But the Dead Sea is even further out than that. So that is really in the kind of the boonies.
Mm.
So um, that's yeah. So
Is that in Jordan?
that's where the estate would have been. Hmm?
Is that in Jordan?
I'm sorry.
Jordan?
I think so. Yes. What is now Jordan? So
Yeah.
Jordan has a lot of biblical sites. Even though it's not part of the modern day state of Israel, Jordan has a lot of biblical sites in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things happen there. I actually have funny thing. I used to know the Prince of Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
um, Prince Hashim. We went to school together at Duke. So
Wow.
really great guy, really nice. So yeah, so that was my little encounter with royalty. So, um, but I actually knew a couple of people from Jordan. I still keep in touch with them from college. Wonderful, wonderful people. But a lot of biblical history in Jordan. In fact, Jordan has in its museums some of the oldest biblical manuscripts in the world.
Oh, really? How far do those date back?
Not as far. They're older than I believe the Masoretic text, and they're in Arabic. But they're very old. I would say probably fifth to sixth century CE.
Mm-hmm.
So really old stuff. Much older than, like I said, the Masoretic text itself, which most of our Bibles depend on.
What language was the Dead Sea Scrolls written down in?
They're written in Aramaic and Hebrew, mostly Hebrew, some in Aramaic. I think there might be a few written in Greek, but that's to be expected since Aramaic would have been the main language of the people in that area. And they contain not just biblical, orthodox biblical text or official biblical text, but also a lot of those books that we talk about a lot that didn't make it into the official biblical canon. So the book of Enoch, the Testament of the 12 patriarchs, all those apocryphal, pseudepigraphical books are attested to in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Hmm. Excellent. Uh,
But really fascinating. Especially, I like the Dead Sea Scrolls with this whole dualism and kind of the Gnosticism that you get in there. I've always found that very fascinating. I think that's one of the continued appeals of the Dead Sea Scrolls to kind of esoteric people such as myself.
yeah. I have the book of the Dead Sea Scrolls around here somewhere. I don't know where I put it.
Yeah, a guy named Giza Vermees translated them all many years ago.
I have the Penguin Classic version. I don't know.
Yeah, I think is that Giza Vermees who's the translator?
I think I just yeah, Giza Ver yeah,
Mm-hmm.
GEZAVERMES. Yeah. Is that
Yep.
a good
Yep.
translation? Is that the only
Very good. Yeah,
translation?
that's the definitive collection of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah, I always I read the War Scroll a few times. That's the one where they talk about the sons of light and the sons of darkness.
Yeah, yeah. And they believed kind of like Messiah would come and kind of clear, make this utopia. But it gets kind of shady. We're not sure if they believe their teacher of righteousness was the Messiah or not. So some very interesting stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. Um, yeah, I kind of cut you off there with a scene talk, but what else were you gonna say? Anything else or
That's basically it. Like I said, they used to, and I don't know what happened, but they used to travel. They had the Dead Sea Scrolls traveling around. I think some of them might be in the Museum of the Bible in Washington D.C. But if you ever get a chance to see them, it's a pretty amazing experience.
and what else do the Dead Sea Scrolls contain? Because like in this book, it's like mostly like it's not old parts of the Bible or anything, is it?
Yeah.
It is?
So it contains some. So there's a variety of types of genres within the Dead Sea Scrolls. So you have straight up biblical text in Hebrew and in Aramaic. Then you have ritualistic text about basically the rites and the procedures that one would undergo as a member of the Dead Sea Scroll community. And then you have these kind of apocalyptic,
Mm-hmm.
apocryphal text where you have the sons of light versus the sons of darkness. So the war scroll, for example, that you mentioned, um, and just these kind of end of the world texts, which are kind of far out there and unique to the Dead Sea Scroll community.
Yeah, it also has hymns and poems,
Yep.
apocryphal psalms,
Yep.
calendars,
Yep.
liturgies, and prayers. But I mean, the Dead Sea Scrolls doesn't contain like uh, anything from the Old Testament as far as like Exodus or Genesis
Yeah,
or
it does. Every single book
oh, it
of
does.
that's a really great question. Every single book of the Old Testament is attested to in some way. Now, it might be not be a complete version of that book, but every book except for Esther, I believe, and Song of Songs is attested to in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the
Mm,
reason that Esther and Song of Songs aren't attested to is because those two books in Hebrew do not mention God, and so the Dead Sea Scroll community might the Essene community might have considered them blasphemous or not scripture.
mm, interesting. Yeah,
And people have
because
even speculated. They've sometimes said that the new parts of the New Testament were in the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's kind of debatable, but definitely most of the books of the Old Testament.
because in this book here that they don't really include any of those things. But what you're saying is they allude to those types of stories within the Dead Sea Scrolls themselves,
Yeah,
but there's not
yeah.
an actual Exodus book in the Dead Sea
Yes,
Scrolls.
so there's actually there's actual. So, for example, one of the famous Dead Sea Scrolls is the Isaiah scroll. It's a
Okay.
copper scroll, which I'm really kind of into because
Oh
it reminds me of the
wow.
Book of Mormon. The kind of
Yeah.
connection to that. It's absolutely gorgeous. I've actually seen it in person,
Oh
and it
shit.
contains basically all of the Book of Isaiah.
Wow, man. That's
Yeah,
fascinating. Um,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
well, this month we are doing kind of paranormal and aliens and stuff like that. I know you're a little bit into aliens. What is kind of your take a little bit on like aliens and spirits and demons and paranormal? How does that fit into kind of your perspective?
Yeah, I definitely believe in aliens. I think that there's no difference. I think I mentioned this before. It's not really a difference in my view between an angel and an alien. What
Okay.
we call aliens now in the 21st century, thousands of years ago, they would have called angels. So I think that they're one and the same. I also think that, as with everything in the cosmos, there's a dualism. So some angels are really nice and other angels are not. And that's where we get our demons from. I
Mm.
think your reptilian alien and some of those nasty, really sinister aliens that you get that get talked about, that late Phil Schneider talked about. I think those are some of your demons. So I think that they're one and the same.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a ghost or whatnot?
I've never seen a ghost. I've had a couple of UFO encounters. Not that I've seen the aliens themselves, but I have seen ships.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but never have actually seen a ghost myself. So doesn't say I don't believe in them. I believe definitely in the ability to contact to contact those who have been deceased.
Mm-hmm.
I think my dad died last year, as you know, and sometimes I still hear him talking to me in dreams,
Yes.
and just in my mind. Sometimes I'm driving down the road, so I've had those type of experiences, but never an actual ghost. Now this is funny because when I was growing up in the '80s, we lived in Baltimore on Plainfield Avenue, and my parents swore that there were ghosts in that house like crazy. And they said they used to hear a 1940s kind of record playing, and
Mm-hmm.
they would call the neighbors next door, and they said, it wasn't us, which was really really freaky. And we learned that literally, I know this sounds like something from Poltergeist. We learned that literally the house was built on an Indian burial ground. So uh, do with that what you want.
Do you when we're talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls and how they were found, they were found by kids playing and through rocks and kind of broke down a cave and went in and found them. Do you think some of these things maybe possibly have energies and bring people to them because they want to be found?
I absolutely do. I
I know
absolutely
that's a
do.
weird one.
So I think that, I think that, certain texts, I think it's the same for Nag Hammadi.
Mhm.
For so long, the Orthodox Christian Church had suppressed anything about these Gnostic texts, and then suddenly they're found. So I think that, certain things have energies to them, and eventually they come to light, and eventually a more truthful picture emerges. Because there's a lot of stuff in the Gnostic text which I think inform us much more about the true nature of what Jesus' teachings were and about Jesus' person than we get in Orthodox Christianity.
And that's also kind of a narrative in the Book of Mormon too, is
Hmm.
Joseph Smith. Sorry.
Yeah, he's led to these plates
Yeah, he's led.
by this angelic being.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
very interesting. Like how some of these discoveries seem very accidental or whatnot, but I mean, there's so much to like finding coincidence, and finding things, and especially a treasure like the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, that's got to
yeah,
be amazing. It,
yeah. And I mean, and then the fact that it lasted all this, even with the Nag Hammadi text, that these things were preserved for thousands of years. I don't think that's an accident. I think that they were protected, and I think that there was an energy to them that did allure people, to them.
yeah, like a calling. Hmm.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fascinating. Yeah, we've been getting into the
It is. It
UFOs
is.
and the paranormal, and I'm not very much of a religious or spiritual person. Or I'm spiritual, but like as far as like ghosts and ghosts scare the crap out of me. By the way, and aliens, I've kind of I was really into them at one point, and I've kind of gone back. But hearing other people's stories of their experiences is really like captivating, and it's hard to like say, oh, I don't know, that sounds like, because these people, you can see it in their face, like they really feel it, they
Yeah,
really believe what happened to them, and who am I to say, I don't believe that, so you're wrong, you know um
yeah,
so it's very captivating to hear these stories, and it really like makes me try to think differently in my head about the reality in which we live in, and makes
yeah.
me a more open person. So I've been really enjoying this month, and the next month too. I think we've already recorded a couple, so it's been fun.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you, Adam. Can you tell people where they can find you at, and if what else you got going on? And
Yeah, yeah. I have my Instagram site, Adam the Giant Guy 2019, where I'm always posting a bunch of stuff, especially when it comes to kind of ancient esoteric stuff. I also have a site on Facebook, Lingua Classica, where I put a lot of ancient stuff as well. It's more kind of a Latin language site, but I put a lot of Greek and Roman mythology, Greek and Roman history on there as well. So those are the two main sites that I can be found on. Working on hopefully, I've been so busy, I haven't had time to really focus on these, but I'm trying to get another book out there by next year.
mm,
Hopefully, when things die down with the library science degree and stuff like that, I can just focus more attention on that.
any do you know what topic you're going to be covering?
I'm trying to make the presentation that I gave at ARE into a book.
Okay.
So it was on Native American mounds and kind of the Casey readings
Oh, excellent.
and the Book of Mormon. Yeah,
Fun. Excellent, man.
yeah.
All right, Adam. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Fire Tribe. And stay tuned for the interview.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Rising from the Ashes. It is me, Homie Romy. Today, I am here solo without my partner, Dan, and that's okay because with us, we have a very experienced and someone well versed in the field of ley lines, dowsing, labyrinths, geomancy, and much more. We have with us today Marty Cain, and she is a gem. We have been speaking for quite some time now, a little bit over a month, planning this show, and we hope to weave into this month's theme of paranormal, parapsychology, and earth energetics. So what we're doing is we're piecing together different experience stories that people have with either UFO sightings or ghost or entities, and then how they might corroborate or collaborate with these special sacred places on the earth that permeate the earth and energy. We think there's a connection there. And so today I thought it wise to bring on Marty Cain. Hello, Marty. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for the invite. Yeah.
Of course. I love your dragonfly necklace.
Well, thank you. Yeah. The dragonfly is one of my symbols. See, they show up when I need them the most. Yeah. One time I was dowsing a labyrinth in Brazil and I couldn't speak their language. And the fellow could speak a little English. And I had to teach all these people how to dowse so they could dowse out a labyrinth. And as we were walking down to the tent, he looked up and said, I have never seen so many dragonflies. And I laughed and said, well, probably took a couple hundred to convince me it's going to be okay.
A couple hundred?
Yeah, the sky was black with them. It was wonderful.
In Brazil?
Yeah.
And he was a native to the land?
Oh, yeah, I think they're Dutch. I think a lot of, yeah, I'm not sure. But he lived there and
I've never seen that many dragonflies. That's amazing. One of my special bugs that I resonate with is the moth. And yeah. I love moths. Dragonflies, funny enough, when I was in school growing up, I also had a large fascination and still do have a big love and peace in my heart for the dragonfly. But I wrote, like a piece on dragonflies in school, and I was doing research, and they're definitely one of the most unique flying insects, bugs that we have. But what does the dragonflies symbolize to you, and what does it mean to you?
Well, it's like a reassurance that I'm in the right place at the right time. They're kind of a protection and encouragement, basically. Yeah, because they can do anything. They fly backwards and up and down and all kinds of stuff. So if they're with me, then I can fly upside down and backwards. Not really, but they're just like, oh, okay. The first time I was teaching on the college level, I was teaching printmaking, and I was sitting on one of the tables when the students were coming in, and the door was open to the outside, and a dragonfly came in, sat on that desk next to me, and was there all day long and didn't leave until the students had all come and gone. So it's like, okay, you've got support. I think it's a spiritual thing as well as he's not just a bug. I think we all have what Native Americans call day signs, things that let us know we're on the right path and in the right place at the right time. And so, yeah, dragonfly is one of my support critters. Yeah.
That is beautiful and such a great way to start off this conversation. I want to mention that, recently in one of our early episodes of the month on this topic of the paranormal parapsychology, we were speaking with an author who was writing who writes books on ufology, and he brought up this researcher in I believe it was in Germany or maybe Russia. It might have been Eastern Europe. There's this thing called CSE. It's cellular structure effect. That basically there's this pattern that is repeated in the insect world that allows them to defy gravity and defy physics through this specific pattern. And so, speaking on the dragonfly,
speaking about things like Ezekiel's wheel, this sacred knowledge of being able to fly up, fly down, fly backwards, fly forth. And we get some of our technology from these insects and their natural life. And that just blows my mind.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful. The thing is that we as human beings are totally connected to all there is. That's how dowsing works. I mean, the first thing my grandpa taught me to dowse when I was about 5, and we went out in the backyard, and it was evening, and I looked up, and there was a moon, and so I dowsed. Is there water on the moon? And I got a yes. Well, I didn't believe it because I was 5 years old, and I thought the moon was made of cheese, and of course there can't be cheese in water. But anyway, how I realized how I could do that, even as a child, was that I have an auric field. I have a waveform, and this is my particle form that I play on planet Earth with. But I've got a waveform, and the waveform extends out at least 7 layers. And the first layer is the one you see when you're tired and you look at someone like my teachers when they're in front of the blackboard. There's a little white glow around them, about an inch. Well, that's the densest of your auric field, and it goes into your body through your chakras. So that's layer 1. Layer 2 is about fingertips. Layer 3 would be the planet and the moon. Layer 4 is the solar system. No, I got it wrong. The third one would go as far as the Mississippi River from the East Coast. And then the 4th one is the planet and the moon. The 5th one is our solar system. The 6th layer is everything you can see, the tiniest speck of light. And the 7th one is all there is. So you and I are one on that tiny, tiny bit that covers all there is. The skinny branches. We don't go out there very often. It's too scary. And we feel responsible. I mean, if I was all there is, why are there wars? Why is anything going on?
Mm-hmm.
Well, everybody is all there is. So that we have to integrate with everybody else. And because you are everywhere all the time, you can focus in on part of where you are and ask a question. That's how map dowsing works. I mean, I look at a map and is there water on this property out in Tennessee? And I can get a yes or a no in my dowsing because I am already in Tennessee, a part of me, not my conscious mind, but my subconscious mind is connected to the waveform or to the all there is. My conscious mind is not. It doesn't have that job. Its job is to keep me safe and, to line the universe up with what I say I want to have happen. But my subconscious mind connects me. It doesn't judge and evaluate the way the conscious mind does. It just looks to see what's there and come back and tells me what it finds. So I can find water anywhere. Now, I wouldn't do map dowsing for someone who wants a well because the maps are too big. The dimensions are wrong. And I need to know exactly that point where the drill bit goes so you don't miss a water vein 400 feet down. Because if it's off, it's going to miss it and they'll get a dry hole and cost them thousands of dollars. So, I like to be there, be able to mark exactly where to go to get that water. Now, the other aspect of dowsing is, well, it works because we're there. And it really works if we keep our integrity as high as we possibly can. So you don't mess with dowsing. You need to have super high integrity. And everyone dowses differently. I mean, I use L rods when I go out on the land so people can see them move. It's like these guys, give me a yes. My yes opens. This is search. It's straight ahead. Give me a no. My no crosses. So when I go on the land, I walk with these and I get my yes when I come to where the water is. But I always ask the water, are you willing and able to come to the surface to serve the project at hand or to serve the house that's about to be built.
Mm.
If I get a yes, I mark it. If I get a no, I don't even mention that water's there, because if it says
Mhm.
no and they drill, it'll move.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it move many times for other dowsers. In fact, recently there's a well driller up in northern North Carolina, and he recommends me. So people call me when they hire him to drill a well. And I went out the last time, and he's standing there with L rods. And I kind of laughed. I said, "Oh, you're gonna outwork me. You won't have to call me anymore." And he kind of laughed. He said, "Well, he doused that water was where he is." And they went 800 feet and had a dry hole.
800 feet
So
down.
I said, "Okay,
There
we'll
should not
check it
be a
in a
dry
minute."
spot at 800 feet down, right? That's very deep.
Oh yeah, no, we're in the mountains. We're in the mountains. The mountains are huge in North Carolina. But anyway, I went up and I doused the place, and I asked the water vane, I want a water vane that's willing to come to the surface. So I found it, marked it. It was willing to give, I don't know, 15 gallons a minute or something, which is a good amount of water. So I went back and talked to the fellow, and I went and dowsed if there was water where he drilled. And it said yes. And then I said, "Are you willing to come to the surface to serve this new home?" And I got a no. So I said to him, and he watched me, he was with me. And I said, "You got to always, always ask." I said,
Mm-hmm.
"You can learn to dowse almost anything, but everything is alive and intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
even rocks. They
Mm-hmm.
all have their own intelligence. So if water has a commitment to someone at the foot of the mountain, and it can't give you any more because it made a promise to these other people, it's going to move. It won't let you take any if it isn't willing. So always, always ask, are you willing to come to the surface? And then I have people, once it's drilled, right at the head of the drill head, right on it, "I love you, I appreciate you."
Oh.
And the water, it tastes better, and it never goes dry. So everything, if you treat it with the highest respect, then you're going to get the responses that you can count on. It won't lie. It won't mess with you. Nature wants to play, but if it can't, it'll tell you. It'll
Mm.
tell you. Yeah.
That is so interesting. And do you think it's different with each person that might want to permeate on that property?
No. I think that anybody who just drilled where he did, that water would have moved.
Mm.
But if he asked if it was willing to serve this new home that's being built, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not building it. I'm just asking. It said yes. So we could drill there and it would give us water.
I would like
So
to
I don't think it has any.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'd like to go in maybe a little deeper on this spiritual aspect of the connection to humans and water and dowsing, and um when you're doing like plant identification or wild foraging or any plant harvesting by any means, asking and talking to the plants to at least assure them that you are going to harvest a piece of that, and to say, to also be gracious and say thank you, um, will allow you to find, if you're wild foraging and you're connecting to the land, then you're going to be shown where a lot of plants are or where the mushrooms are, because you're working in cohesion with that. And it seems like there's some correlation here with dowsing, but I don't really understand yet, and I would like to, from your opinion, this connection of water and dowsing and our body's water and the water in the atmosphere and the water in the universe and how they all connect together.
Yeah, but it's not a physical thing. It's not like because I've got water in me that I can douse for water. No, it's because of the emotion of love. Love is it. Love is the communication. And if you treat it with love and respect, it will treat you with love and respect. Everything in nature wants to play. They all want to contribute to each other. They want to, humans are so screwed up. They fight and they kill each other. I mean, this is dumb. But other things, like even trees, if you're going to cut a tree, you need to tell it at least a couple days in advance. So the spirit of that tree can move and go in with another tree in another trunk. And when a baby tree comes up, it goes and that's its tree. Then it's reincarnation for trees. So everything is alive and intelligent, and they have their way of contributing to everything else on the planet. I mean, trees are home for all kinds of critters, and they even build our homes, right? We use wood for everything. So if we treat it with great respect and appreciation, then we're going to have the highest relationship with all of nature. We're not separate from nature. We chose to be on this planet, and we chose to take the body we've got, even though, it's not as tall as I'd like it, or, whatever else is going on. We're here.
It's deeper
And
than that.
so-
It's deeper than the aesthetic
Oh, much.
connection that we see in the moment, right?
Yes, and it's deep. Yeah, it's deeper than the physical. It's not just physical, it's emotional or spiritual. So that the intelligence, which I think is God, Goddess, all there is, all that intelligence is located in every living thing. I had built a labyrinth, or was building a labyrinth with a friend, and we were using great huge rocks, to put them in place. Well, she was a little bitty lady. She worked in an emergency ward in Georgia, and she's driving along, sees this road construction going on, and there's these big old rocks that they just chucked on the side of the road. So she pulled over and asked the rocks if they were willing, this big one, if it was willing to be in her labyrinth. And she got a yes response. So she said, I'll come back after work and I'll pick you up. We'll get you. Okay. So she drove back in a little pickup and backed up to it and said, Marty said that if I asked you, that you would help me get into the truck. Now, she's a little bitty lady, like 5 feet, and the thing could have weighed, I don't know, a few hundred pounds. So she reaches down, puts her hands on the rock, and said, I'm going to count to 3. You got to help me if you want to be in my labyrinth. And 1, 2, 3, it was in the back of her truck. So she went, oh, right. And she got in the truck, drove home, backed up to the area where the labyrinth was, and tried to push it out of the truck. It wouldn't budge. She could not move it. So she said, well, I'm tired. I'll go. So she went to bed, got up the next day, went out to the truck and talked to the rock and said, okay, I'm going to dowse. Tell me where you want to be. And she dowsed the outside ring and found that it wanted to be right on the right-hand side of the entrance to the labyrinth. She backed the truck up to that spot, put her hands on nudged it a little bit, it jumped out, and ever since.
I
rocks
love
have
that
clue.
so much.
Yeah.
That is so
I
amazing.
first learned about talking to rocks. Isn't it fun? Everything is so much fun once you realize that you can play with everything. I'm an artist, and I did sculpture in the Boston area for years when I lived there. And I had this commission to do a sculpture in a state park. So I went up and I asked them where, what kind of permission I had to move rocks or whatever. And they said, oh, well, that stone wall over there, people keep kids knock the rocks off. You can use them any way you want. Just don't put them back on the wall, because the kids will knock them off. Well, it was energy lines that was disturbing the rocks. But anyway, I would pick them up and move them and put them where I wanted them. Well, I came to one I couldn't budge. It wasn't that big. And I thought, Finally, I got mad at it. And I said, well, where do you want to be? And I kicked it. And it rolled up a little hill and down the side. And again, it stopped right at the entrance to my sculpture. And I walked over and I said, oh, I'm sorry. So then I started asking every rock where it wanted to be. I didn't have any backaches at the end of that sculpture. everything picked up. They all helped me move them. I wasn't exhausted. I wasn't tired. It was awesome to play with those rocks because they all helped me to put them where they wanted to be. And
Wow.
I'll tell you, the more you work with nature, the more, and ask it if it's willing to play. If it is, you're going to have more fun, and you won't, break your back and, sprain anything, and you can do all
Wow.
kinds of stuff.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
Yeah.
And I want to get, before we go deeper into this conversation and before we go deeper into dowsing and labyrinths, can you give us some of your history, maybe even some of your family history? It sounds like your family, your grandfather at least, has a history of dowsing, and maybe just give us some of that depth, because once we start to understand more of those stories, it just, character development throughout
It'd be weird.
understanding. Yeah, let's do it. I love family history, so
Yeah.
just as much as you want to share,
Okay.
I'm here for it.
Well, sure. Yeah, my grandfather was a refugee from Lithuania during the war. He came as a stowaway on a ship to New York, and he worked in New York at 14 years old, and he worked in the shipyard of New York, and then he moved further north and handed. I don't know how I don't know how we learned English. I don't know how we did all that stuff. But when I came along, he was working for a factory in Newport, New Hampshire, and he was their technician. So he handled all of the, machinery. So he, if it broke down, he fixed it, all that kind of stuff. But he was the local, quote, water witch. So anybody needing a well or needing water would come and get him, and they would go off and he'd dowse. And he's the one who taught me to dowse. He also, this is also a kind of interesting little story, that one evening he took me out. I was crying because my sister and I were fighting, and she took one of my favorite toys and said I couldn't have it. It was hers. And no. So Grandpa took me out back, and he said, I'm going to give you something no one can ever take away. And I said, wow, what's that? Right? So he puts his hands like this and he holds them up to the sky. And I looked through the hole, and there were the Pleiades. And he said, they're yours. No one can ever take them.
Wow.
And so I own the Pleiades.
Yes.
So, yeah. And, long after he died, I dowsed where he was. And he and my grandmother are literally on one of the planets of the Pleiades in that configuration. So he gave me where his home was. So,
wow.
And he's, he's the one who taught me to dowse. So
he gave you the map to back home, like to be able to talk to your ancestors and connect with that place of refuge and home for you. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the Pleiadian energy and maybe people, I don't know, are here to help us get through this rough time that the earth is going through, the chaos and the fighting and all that political stuff that's so corrupt and horrible. I think we have some friends they may be spirits, or they may be people from the Pleiades that are living here now. And, they're just as human as anybody else, but they have a high integrity. So it's, we're not alone. We're not alone. And there is spirit there. If the more trust you have in that inner self and that inner connection, then the more good you can do.
Yes.
I mean, I'm 81, and I'm still climbing up mountains, dowsing for water. In fact, one of the places I dowse in, just north of Asheville, it's a huge mountain. And the developer had me come, and I climbed down this ridge and found the water. And trying to get back up to the road where he was standing waiting for me, I was holding on to bushes and trees and pulling myself up. And he burst out laughing and said, Marty, next time I bring you, I'm going to bring a rope so I can get back up to the road. But, if you keep doing and contributing and stay connected to the really goodness, then age is ridiculous. Doesn't mean anything. May
Wow.
mean a few more experiences than what
Mm-hmm.
I had when I was 16, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still, I'm still doing it.
Wisdom, comes and like transmutes itself into the gloriousness of being an elder in the community. It's really
Right,
important, and what you do with your work and the services you offer that you've gathered from your family is
right,
so important. And your grandfather would be so proud of you and doing the things that he taught you that comes from his family, which
right.
comes from probably a long line of some
Down,
very
yeah.
powerful people. I mean, Lithuania is rich in history. I've
And it's
done
rich in farmland. It's rich in all of that. And he's Lithuanian. Yeah.
that is so cool. Was he tall? Was he a big man?
No, he
No?
wasn't. He was square, and I think no, he wasn't tall. No, even my dad, who was English, was only oh what 5'10", something like that.
Yeah, yep. The average height, I believe.
Yeah, but Grandpa was even shorter than Dad. So
Oh wow.
um, but
Oh.
he was healthy and strong and kind of square built, like that.
The Lithuanians that I know, one of my really good friends actually has married a Lithuanian woman, and now they have Lithuanian babies. And
Oh,
so
good.
that was my first introduction into that country, and I love history, so I start to look up different parts of the history, and it seems that Lithuania specifically has a connection to ancient India and the ancient Vedas, and that some of the more esoteric and fringe um, uh, parts of history, like deep, real origin stories, actually
Mhm.
are held secret in Lithuania, and like some of their architecture is so cool, and there's just
Yeah.
so much about that. Have you been back to that part of the world?
No, I tried to get to Lithuania, but I don't know. There were all kinds of rules and regulations because it
Mm,
was quote communist at one point. But one
yes.
of the stories my grandfather told me um, was that two planets collided, the Earth and another planet, and the Chinese and the whole Eastern way of thinking were on one of the planets, and the Western way of thinking was on the other. And when they collided, then they became one. And the ancient Chinese had writing, language, numbers way before the Westerners did. And this is historically true. And that Lithuania was a connection between the East and the West, and that they knew from both sides. And they helped connect the whole planet into a unit. So, that was history.
Wow.
And the dowsing, I know, is done in China. It has
Hmm.
been for centuries. And in American Western, it was done for a long time, but it was not accepted because of Christianity or the church or somebody
Hmm.
decided that we could be that powerful.
I
But every one of us is that powerful, really.
Wow. That is, first of all, that story is amazing. And it touches in on a lot of things. I'm automatically thinking the Atlantean Lemurian story, that divide between those two. It's almost like the Eastern is the Lemurian and the Western is the Atlantean. These two planets conceptually, boom, talked about the Vesca Pisces before, like a Venn diagram type of situation with these two fields working together, counter rotating, how
Yeah.
celestial energies might be working, which is fascinating, which makes sense when you think about a toroid going out like this
Yes.
and creating that.
Right.
So it's like
And
you do have
all
those.
over, out and in. It's a double. It's like a double helix, and that center pole is the center from north to south pole.
Yep.
And so, and we spin this way, and this way. So it's going both ways. The torus is a fantastic thing. When you go to the ancient sacred sites like stone circles, it's a torus. You are a toroidal shape. Your whole auric field is in the form of a toroid. You know, it keeps moving.
Coming
And,
out from your heart and up from your head.
Yeah. Yeah. Your heart feeds the spin. It's part of that. Yeah. And then when I went, I would go, I mean, I've been to hundreds and hundreds of stone circles, because what I would do when I was teaching in Cambridge, Mass, I would take a boat to England or fly to England, rent a car, and drive up and hunt up ancient megalithic sites.
Wow.
And I didn't,
That's
but I
amazing.
doused them. I doused the energy. Every single sacred site has water under it or under it and near it. So you'll find a spring next to almost every stone circle. So you've got the combination of the water and the circle, and the stones, which also help to form the vortex. It's awesome. It's awesome. And they're on the crossing of beneficial energy. So the grid is marked out by ancient peoples so that you would know where to go to be part of the grid. Now, when I was down in Cornwall, and I was exploring all this stuff, because, oh man, I loved it. I just went crazy. So I went down into Cornwall, and there was a dolmen in the southern section, southeastern section of Cornwall. And it was only about 4 or 5 feet at the lowest point of the rock, and it was slanted like that. So I got on another rock and I pulled myself up and I lay like this, looking out over toward France, the English Channel. I couldn't see the channel, I was too far back, but I was like that. Well, all of a sudden, I'm on a rock that's tipped like that, and I'm lying this way. All of a sudden, only thing touching the rock were my elbows. And I knew that if I knew what I was doing, and if there were people at the base supporting me, I could, and another rock under me. So it wasn't just the capstone, but 2 capstones. That second rock would have flown across the English Channel, and I would have been in France. So that's how transportation happened for some people, ancient times. If you go to Mexico, they have a myth or story that the blonde-haired, blue-eyed gods came on stone ships. So what are they talking about? They're talking about blonde-haired, blue-eyed people riding the energy lines on a stone from Europe to Mexico. Yeah. So, I mean, we keep ourselves so small and so unpowerful, so helpless, basically, that we forget we can be at any time and in any place if done ethically. We can do that.
I think that's why so many people have flying dreams of flying.
Yes.
When they're in their subconscious sleep,
Yeah, and when they're children too, mostly at children, and then they grow up and they stop doing that because that's not possible, right? So you stop those dreams, but that was letting you know that you've had those experiences. Maybe the last time you were on planet Earth.
Do you
think?
Maybe
Do
you think there's another reason, and maybe some sort of ulterior force that is suppressing the? Do you think at one time the Earth was more magnetic or had more of these potency along these energetic highways, if you will, than they do now? And and for a dowser, do you think that Earth goes through changes where there's a thicker connection to tap into? It's harder almost to tap into that, like this, almost like the psychic highway is being muddled with other types of energies that are being created from an ulterior force or an interior force, some higher echelons of government, even possibly. Yep.
It's hard to know. I mean, you can dowse. It's like I don't dowse medical stuff because I don't know medical stuff. So, but I can dowse how many vitamin C I should have today for my highest good. But when I dowse that the earth is, I'd say, tired. She's actually moving into a different location in the solar system. So there's something going on in the relationship of the earth to the sun, and where our sun is aligning with a second sun, which is part of the universal sun. So there's all these different layers of connection of energy going out into the universes. And we're getting an awful lot of, we're getting whacked, actually. The sun is no longer warm, it's cutting. I've been down, take winters in North Carolina, and I've done it for 17 years now. And because of COVID, I've been here 2 full years straight. And the sun isn't warm like it used to be. I can't lay out in the sun. I feel like it's cutting. It's burning me rather than warming me. So it's sharper. And I don't know how many people feel that. And there's some reason for putting up the chemtrails. They're having, oh, that's my pussycat. Come on, buddy. Don't you do that.
We love cats. Oh, wow. Look at that little baby.
Really fun. He's only about 4 months old, so he's really into mischief. But anyway, I think there is an outside influence. I think there are good guys and bad guys that want to take over and control this whole planet. I think that maybe they don't want human beings on it so that they can get the gold or the resources that are on this globe. I don't know. It's bigger than, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. It's much bigger than that. And it's worldwide. And the pandemic is some demonstration of how a group of beings, whether they're real human or not, want to eliminate a lot of the population. So things are going on. And you can doubt, one of the things about this is a dowsing tool. Just anything on a string. It's a pendulum. You can get your yes, no response. So show me my yes. My yes is back and forth. Search is circular for me, and no is sideways.
So is there a way to hold it? Like obviously trying to hold it still in your hand.
Yeah, no. What I do is I hold it close at the top, because if the string is too long, it takes too slow, and my energy is like, oh, come on, I'm waiting. I can't stand it if it goes too slow. So I let it dangle out of my fingers until it starts to move. That's the length of the string that's the best for me.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't get impatient if it way down here and go really slow, and it drive me crazy. So I go to where it is for my
2
my
inches
energy.
looking like.
It depends on you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
What's really interesting about that is I'm getting these like kind of ideas of it's an ancient psychic tool. It's a tool to help maybe bring the manifest what's happening, or some sort of physical tool to be able to consolidate psychic energy when you're talking to the ether. The dowsing rod or the dowsing tool is that physical form of consolidated psychic energy, or something along those lines.
Well, that tool just is a readout. It's a readout of what your intuition is getting. It's telling you what's in your auric field. And your auric field is all there is. It encompasses all there is. That's how I can dowse water on the moon. I didn't go to the moon. I can map dowse anywhere. You give me a map, I'll dowse it. I'll tell you what's there. And how I do that is that my body is Marty. It's the piece I use to play with on planet Earth. It's like my Monopoly piece. Marty. You move it around, right? Well, that's not who I am. That's not who I am. I'm the one that's hearing the voice in my head. The voice in my head is not me. I'm listening to it. And the dowsing tool is just something, so you have a readout. When you ask a specific question, you get a readout. And you have to be specific because you're everywhere. Is it going to rain today? Yes. You will always get a rain yes, because you didn't say here. This afternoon. Is it going to rain this afternoon when I go for a walk? No, right? So you got to be extremely specific or you're going to get assumptions. And assumptions get us into big doo-doo most of the time. It's not a good thing to do, is assume something. So integrity and accuracy and simplicity. You read a lot of books and they're so complicated. Like, oh, you got to do this, you got to line up your chakras, you got to, it's bullshit. The simpler and the purer, the better. Gold is not complicated. It's pure, simple. It's itself. It's valuable. And we in ourselves, if we can be simple, straightforward, then it's going to be easy. You don't have to make it complicated. Ask your yes, no response. Everybody douses differently. So my yes is back and forth. I have a friend whose yes is clockwise and counterclockwise. That's a yes and no. Me, when it springs counterclockwise, it's saying, well, ask your question, lady. And then I ask it and I get a yes or no. But everybody's slightly different. You can read tons of books. In fact, when I first started looking for books, there were only a couple. And now there's lots and lots of books on dowsing. But the more complicated it is, throw the book out. It's not worth it. I don't care who wrote it. I don't care how famous they are. Famous. Just it's not worth your time. So some of the people that I would suggest any book they wrote, Sig Longren is one. He wrote on labyrinths. He wrote on spiritual dowsing.
What's his name? Sig.
S-I-G, Longren, L-O-N-E-G-R-E-N, Longren.
Sig Longren. Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yep. And another one is, let's see, John Michelle. He's not with us anymore. He was a person from England, and he researched ancient sacred sites, and he researched the grid, and he did a lot of the early writing on crop circles. Brilliant, brilliant man. He's left us now. Greg Storzak, who's a dowser from where is he? Out west somewhere. He's not with us anymore, but he's written a number of books on dowsing. He's very clear and precise. Paul Devereaux is English, British. He writes on earth memory and all kinds of spiritual kind of stuff. So Paul Devereaux was another one. And I mean, any books by them are valid, and they're not saying, look how brilliant I am. They're saying, this is what I know, use it if you like. It's a whole different attitude. And of course, my little book, Ladies' Notes on Dowsing, I wrote that just before going to a labyrinth conference, because I just was so tired of all the books being written by men. And it was just like they have a different way of approaching sometimes. And I just wanted it simple, straightforward, everything you need to know in just a little book. So that's what I did. But yeah.
They get too heady with it, right? They try to. Well, that's, what's interesting about, books of antiquity, or, reading magic books and, books of like this book literally right here, for instance, Magic of the Middle Ages,
Right,
cryptic.
yeah.
There's a lot of cryptic, cipheric. This is written by Richard Kickheifer.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know him yet.
He's amazing. He's written a lot of books on. He wrote the 15th century guide to necromancy. and book on symbology and church stones and church architecture, which I actually would like to get into about as well, because when you connect ancient dowsing, navigation, and churches, labyrinth, stone circles, they're all connected. And
Yeah, they're all on Earth's sacred sites. Except more recently, they just build them where there's an empty lot. But the ancient churches, all the churches in England and all the cathedrals in France, they're all on the Earth grid. They're on the ancient, King Arthur's story. All of that stuff is real. They use those energy lines to travel. They also used it for communication, and they mapped with them. They got from one place to another with them. So it was very important to understand the integrity of the earth itself. And people in those days, they didn't have TV and they didn't have all the technical stuff we've got, but they had something even more. They had trust in their own understanding and connection to the earth. And we've lost that. We've totally lost. It's not taught to our children. It's not, every child ought to learn to dowse by the time they're 5. I mean, seriously, if they can dowse, I didn't know. I knew I could use it for water, but I didn't know I could use it in school. Man, would that have been helpful? I couldn't spell, but
Wow.
I could have dowsed the yes, no, 2 false questions. Man, I'd have done really good in school. I wasn't bad in school either, but
they're not mystery
you can
schools
dowse
anymore. We're not in mystery schools anymore. Our schooling is completely compartmentalized in a way that it's rather confusing and thick for the mind.
Yeah, and it's boring. It's totally boring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely boring. And it doesn't empower you, because they don't want powerful children. There are groups of people who still are teaching kids to be empowered. And some of them are dowsers, some of them are just spiritual beings. They just want the children to be curious and, be empowered. So dowsing, I think, was the greatest gift my grandfather ever could have given me, because I can check, I can dowse. I don't dowse if the plumber is honest. I dowse if the plumber is capable of doing the job and will be fair pricing me, and if he'll do a good job. Is it the highest good? I hire this dowser, this plumber. I don't check to see if he's cheating on his wife. That's none of my business. I only dowse ethically. What is the relationship with me? And I can dowse all the politicians. Is that politician going to be true to his word? If I get a no, I don't vote for him. I mean, it's
political dowsing never even really crossed my mind.
Yeah, you can dowse for anything if done ethically, especially if it affects you. If it affects you. Now, I dowsed for this woman who wanted to, she was really upset. Her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend started across the country on a motorcycle. Her daughter was 14. And every day the daughter was sending her a postcard, so she wouldn't have to worry about him on this trip across the country. Well, that's pretty young to send your daughter out across the country on a motorcycle with a boyfriend. But anyway, she did that. And now it had been 5 days and she hadn't got a postcard. So she wanted me to dowse where her daughter was. And I said, I can't dowse that. You're the mother. We can dowse if she's okay, because you will always have a connection. You always, being a parent, need to know if your children are okay. If they need you for any reason, you need to know that. So we dowsed that and she was fine. The next day she got 5 postcards. But it was out integrity for her to know where the daughter was, because she gave her freedom to go. And it's none of her business where she was. That she's okay, that's her business. Is this making sense?
Oh yeah, yeah, no, it totally does. And the interesting part about it is like I want to get your opinion on spirit itself,
Mhm.
and the obvious unanimous cohesion of all spirit and all things are the one. Yet we are also one in ourselves and individualistic. So, how, in your opinion, through just your spiritual belief or what have you, how does that work and how does that look for you?
Well, I know that I encompass all there is. And I know that Jesus said, you can do as I have done and even greater things. Right. So I'm not, I don't preach. I'm not a religious leader. I haven't read the Bible from end to end, but I do believe that there is a higher or a living force that is basically guiding human beings. I believe in the angels. In fact, Archangel Michael, I call him my booking agent. When, whenever I run totally out of money and I need a job, Michael has somebody call me, and I have, and then I can earn some money, right? And there was this fellow that I would meditate and go to his office way up. I mean, way up in the center of the universe, and he had a big old desk, and I'd go in and we'd sit down and chat. And I called him Blaze because he was on a blazing star, which is like our sun, only further out. And I just called him Blaze. I didn't know who he was, but he was wonderful. And we had these long discussions. And when I told him I'd go anywhere, providing he makes it possible for me to get there. So, people would call me up, they'd pay me to go to England, or they'd pay me, they'd get me places. And I said, I'd go, I don't care. And, I found out who he was. Metatron. He was Metatron. And I got totally embarrassed. I thought, oh my God, he's the overriding angels of angels. And I went to his office and I was red faced and I apologized. I've been calling you Blaze. I didn't know you were Metatron. And he looked at me and he burst out laughing. And he said, you call me Blaze. Because he didn't want me worshiping him. He wanted me working with him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, or the energy, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is. He showed up as this old man, but he can show up in almost any form he wants. These angelic realm, the consciousness of not just humans, but of life itself, can show up in any form it wants to take. So you'll get a dream, you'll get a hunch, you'll get something to have you wake up, all of these things,
How
so
does how does the how do the labyrinths play into that? Like there is the
oh,
labyrinth is some sort of like portal or entrance or something, marking these sacred sites. How does that play into angelic energies?
well, the labyrinth is a sacred site, and you walk it, and you go ring 3, 2, 1, which is the physical plane. 4 is the heart. 5, 6, and the center is connection to the spirit world, or everything else. Okay, so physical and non-physical. So when you walk it, your body is adjusting to the different energy levels. So you're going in tighter and tighter and tighter to the center. When you're in the center, you're in the center of a
Of a
what
toroid.
a
Oh
toroid.
wow.
Right. So you are in that center of the labyrinth is a center of a toroid, and you are connected to heaven and earth. So from that point, you can ask for anything that you need. You can ask for peace on the earth. You can ask for freedom. You can ask for health for your friends. You can ask for a new car. You can ask for A's on your exams. Anything that you really need. When you're in that center, you're heard. Heaven and earth hears you. Whether they give it to you or not is another story, but you're heard. So that is one of the real purposes for the labyrinth. So you give thanks, you walk back out, and you're readjusting your body, the vibration in your body from the center of the toroid out the different layers, zigzagging back and forth until you leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you're back to, you know, to being connected to the all there is, right? But when you're in that center, it's really heaven and earth right there.
It's just it's an X point of sorts, and it obviously comes from a higher vision or a higher gnosis of sorts. What is the history of the labyrinth that you know of? Like what culture?
5,000.
What culture came up with
I
that?
don't know. I think it's been here. Well, there's the first one I ran into was on a cliff, carved in a cliff in Cornwall, England, where King Arthur was born and where he hung out, right? So I ran my fingers through there are two of them.
Mm-hmm.
One is lower down, and
there are pictures on your website, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I ran my fingers through them. When I ran my fingers through one, it was a rainy England day, late, winterish, like, and all of a sudden I could hear the water in the brook behind me. I could smell the leaves. I could everything. I was totally grounded. I mean, I was just part of the earth when I ran my fingers around that. And I said, whoa, what's that? And then I went over to the other one and everything disappeared. And I heard the music of the spheres.
Oh.
And I can't sing. I'm not a musician. This music just covered me totally when I ran my fingers around the heaven one. So that's a connection to heaven and earth. And when I got home after that trip, I said, I have got to understand the labyrinth. I've got to know, what is this? Well, I couldn't find much written on it. And it was all complicated crap. So I said, well, for me as an artist, if I build it, I will understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started labyrinths. And it's amazing, from that, I just got totally connected. Totally connected.
Wow.
One of my early labyrinths was at Harvard University in the Radcliffe Quadrangle. And I worked with all the Harvard students.
Is it still there?
They were so smart. And no, it was temporary. It was a quote,
beautiful.
art sculpture.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. An art sculpture, right?
So I taught them all about because I'm an artist, and in Cambridge, Mass, in Boston, I was known as an artist, and I still do. I do a lot of drawings and portraits and stuff like that. I don't do as much sculpture, but yeah. I used to do sacred sites in state parks.
Oh, wow. That's so cool and so important. Like that role to play in society is super important. And anybody listening, how about this? Everybody listening to this, definitely go to Marty's website and check a lot of this out, because she has great information on there. And I think this is something that we all should really be trying to tap into, especially in these times. And there is a labyrinth locator website, if I'm not mistaken. I've been on that website.
Most of my labyrinths on that, because I wasn't associated with the bigger labyrinths. I do the 7th Circuit, which is the original labyrinth. And then the bigger ones were done by the churches, and they were 2 labyrinths put together. So there were 11 to, many, many more turns. And how it is the 2 7s were put together to make the big, like the Chartres Cathedral labyrinth. It's huge. And most people don't take the time to walk something that big. And it's no more powerful than a 7. And I'll go anywhere and do workshops all over the country. I've done workshops in Brazil. I've done workshops all across the country, and even in Canada, to build labyrinths. And we just do a big workshop. Everybody comes and pays the host. They get me there and back, pay me a little bit, and we have a labyrinth. And then they have supporters to keep walking the labyrinth when they can't be home. So they need to be energized. They need to be taken care of. You don't just build it and walk away. You invite people over to walk it, so that the earth is connected and it's energized by our being there.
Can
It's
you
a two-way street. It's
can you
not
explain to me again
gimme, gimme,
how
gimme.
you actually walk the labyrinth? Like, what is the true and proper way to engage with a labyrinth?
Well, there's many, many ways of engaging. I've even seen kids, kick a soccer ball all the way through it, so you can play on it. You can ride your bike on it. But to, to, you still get value from it, no matter whether you hold it as a spiritual thing or you think of it as this wonderful experience. But, to build a labyrinth, you need to know that it is spiritual, that you are responsible for taking care of it. Native Americans walk labyrinths from the time they can walk. They're taught. They're not marked on the earth. They're too sacred to leave without some oversight.
Wow.
So when the Native Americans would go up and down the coast, depending on the winter, they wouldn't build a labyrinth and walk away for 5 months because it wasn't protected, it wasn't worked, it wasn't used. So they would not mark it, so no one could bring any bad energy to it. So they taught the kids how to walk it, and they taught them how to feel the sacred site, how to feel the energy of a labyrinth, and then they would walk it. I was walking one, or making one out in Colorado and near Denver, and it was a peace labyrinth. I wanted to walk a labyrinth for peace during when the wars were starting in England or in Europe, and a friend of mine who was a dowser came and watched me walk it, and I didn't have it marked. I just knew how to walk it. I'd built so many, and I came back out and I bowed to it, and he said to me that 2 Native Americans spirits came to him and stood next to him as he watched me walk in this labyrinth. And they said, "Why is she walking the sacred path?" And he said, "To end the wars in Europe." And they said, "Oh," and they disappeared. And it freaked him out. He'd never seen them before. But, this is one of their tools to be connected with the earth and have how they want life to be asked for. That's that communication. So no, it's not a small thing. You can play on it, you can be reverent on it, you can ask for anything you need. Always honoring and respecting. When I come out of any labyrinth I walk, I bow to it to thank it. Thank you for this experience. If I go up to one and I don't feel right, I won't walk it. I don't walk it. You can put it on detrimental energy, not knowing what you're doing. So if you're going to build a labyrinth, you want to know what you're doing. You don't want to just flop it on the earth anywhere. You want to dowse out where is it in the highest good. And so I've dowsed labyrinths for people, and I want it over there in my front yard. And I doubt, no, it doesn't go there.
Mm-hmm.
It goes over here on the side lawn where people don't watch you walking it. So it's private, and you can invite who you want to come and use it. But it's not like, oh, look at me, I've got a labyrinth. I mean, one woman got me over to England because she owned some land on the Michael and Mary line, and she wanted me to build a labyrinth on the Michael and Mary line.
What is the Michael and Mary line?
Michael line is one of the earth grid lines. It goes through to St. Michael's Church in France, off the coast of France, through Stonehenge, through another church's big, it's a connection, a big connection. They call it the Michael and Mary line. It's one of the energy lines that was discovered in England. So, but I got there, and all she wanted was to be able to brag that she lived on the Michael and Mary line in Shadow Island. I couldn't do it. I said, "No, thank you. No, you'll have to get somebody else." And I left. I'm not, if it's not ethical, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
good for you. Honestly, that's great that you hold true on that, because some people will do anything for money. And there's
Yeah.
there's so much more
Cain
to
or
more yeah, there's so much more to it than that. um
yeah.
okay, let's go in on the Michael and Mary line. I love this. I want to also bring back up the concept of the floating rocks again, because that's really deeply fascinating and ties into so much ancient folklore. But what is a good map or a reference that we can look at that is an energy map? Because I try to look up ley line maps. I try to look up these different maps online. I can't
Buckminster,
find any good
yeah,
sources.
Buckminster Fuller is one who talked about the energy lines. Bucky Fuller.
Hmm.
I haven't seen. Oh, there was a woman in Maine. What the heck? I can't think of her name, but she
Buckminster Fuller,
had,
classic.
yeah, Bucky Fuller. But um, she had done some kind of a map that showed the energy lines, and almost every one of the major cities on the planet are at the intersection of major energy lines. Of the 14 hoops, Native Americans call them the 14 hoops, which are the major energy lines that go around the earth. They circle the whole earth, each one of them. Where a lot of the energy lines you work with are just offshoots from the 14 grids, 14 hoops. But Stonehenge is on one. The big cathedrals are all on the crossing of those energy lines. All the stone circles are on energy like that. So they connect. It allows people to bring their intention to feed the earth and to be fed by the earth by going to these sacred sites. When you go to a sacred site, you leave there different. I mean, it's a whole other thing. Even if you think, oh, this is just tourism, once you leave there, something happens. You're different. And if you bring your heart to those places, then the earth is fed by you. And right now she's tired, so we need to bring her love. That's why we need to love the water that we get when we take a shower, because the water goes back into the earth and brings that love to Mother Earth. That's part of her system. So love the water, thank it. Thank your meals that you eat. Thank the water that you drink. All that. It's just so simple, but it's so empowering. It's really important, I think. Yeah. And
Undoubtedly.
dowsing is just a readout of, whether you use L rods or you can feel when I go to the grocery store. Do you use L rods? No. Somebody's gonna say, "What the hell are you doing?" So you just stand there and say, "Isn't the highest good I buy that watermelon?" If you pull toward it, it's a yes. If you push away, it's a no. Anybody watching might think you're drunk, but hey, that's dowsing. That's using your body as your tool. So it's all how are you getting what it is to be human and interacting with all life on the planet and the planet itself. So that's what sacred sites are about. It's a place for people to go and give their love to Mother Earth and to Father Sky and all of that. It's all there. I don't know if that answered your question, but
Yeah, no, it definitely did. I mean, Buckminster Fuller, absolute, absolute amazing man. And looking into
oh, he
his,
was wonderful.
so good. And like you can, what's great about those books is they have all those references where they were looking up,
Yeah.
getting their information, and so you could just date all that back. It's super fascinating. One thing I
It
wanted
goes way
to.
back to the Sumerians. It goes way back to the Sumerians. If you can read that kind of language, the ancient languages, it's all there. It's all there, and it's in the ancient traditions of primitive, what we call primitive people. All in Africa and in our Native Americans, they all know what they're doing. Yeah.
Very much so. Very, 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 very much so. And
Yeah.
you were talking earlier about the way that the planet is, being affected by outside celestial forces as we're transiting and going through phases and stages. And, there's a lot of talk that we are going to find ourselves back in a place after the transition that will be more magnetically potent for the earth. You know, people that are around and that's make it through to the other side of the transition or the age evolution of the planet and where we're going, that we might find ourselves back in a golden age period, which would be fantastic. And I do have hope for that, because it seems that things are getting ramped up here. I mean, things are always ramped up,
Yeah.
you know, on the political level or whatever, but it feels like we definitely might be seeing the tail end of a transition, and there will be a bloomage on the other side.
Focused attention with love. And that's what dowsing is. It's an openness, it's a willingness to get whatever answer you get. It's an open heart. And that is so powerful. And you focus very razor sharp on whatever the question is that you have. So
Mhm.
you're practicing focused attention with love. It's the most powerful tool that human beings have. And that's why ETs were, you know, stealing people and animals and stuff. They don't have, all of them don't have the love vibration, but humans have it and they want it. And they don't know whether we get it from the planet or we bring it to the planet.
Mhm.
They don't know. And I don't know either, but that's what we've got and that's what we need to use.
Wow.
So and Dowsing helps with that. Yeah.
I have a lot. There's a lot of interesting, weird type of things I wanted to tie into that, just to say, because I am watching this show. Sometimes I like to indulge myself on some television when I want to just turn off after working all day. And there's a great series called True Blood, which is about a romanticized, series on vampires, and this kind of broader understand. I think the show really encapsulates this like understanding of, if we lived with these supernatural creatures here and they were just a part of everyday life. Point being of that is, there's these vampires in the show, they can live forever because they have, the blood goes through, but they don't have a heartbeat themselves. And so that's why they live in, they can't be out in the sunlight and things. But the main character in the show falls in love with a human because of their deeper ability of having emotions and that heartbeat that they do actually have. So it's a love show between a vampire and a non-vampire, which is fascinating. But thinking about, what we're saying is, if there's potential contact with outside forces and they want our heartbeat, that could kind of be interpreted as, what a vampire could be, but that was, like I said, like kind of fringe. I wanted to talk to you
Yeah,
about your other section on
another
it. Oh, go
connection.
ahead.
Oh yeah, there's another connection, and that is when you talk about the blood. Adrenochrome is when people scare a child to death and then drink the blood. That's
Mm-hmm.
called adrenochrome.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps them from getting old.
Mm-hmm.
They have no wrinkles. That's what a vampire is. Someone who drinks the blood. And so adrenochrome is the 20th century term for vampire. And there's a lot of, quote, people that all of a sudden, when Trump went in and took out all the child trafficking, did, rescued all those children in the tunnels and all that stuff, those people who were using it are getting very old very fast. And when you look at them, they look awful. They do.
Yeah.
And some of even the leaders, you look at some of the American leaders or leaders of other countries, if you saw them 5 years ago, they didn't look like they showed their age. But you look at them now, they can't get the adrenochrome, which kept them young. So things that go on in this planet are, I mean, it sounds like fiction. It sounds like some wild story, but you can see it. It's obvious.
I've done a lot of research on the history of cannibalism throughout our history, and people that listen to the show, they know I've done other podcasts where I've talked about medical cannibalism and the use of human body parts and blood throughout different medical practices throughout history. It's always been a part of culture, always has been, using the things, and go even to the crazy thing of harvesting human fat after wars and going out to the war field and using the fat to make soap. And there were companies doing that up until the earliest of the 20th century, so
Oh my
it's
goodness, I didn't know about that one.
yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
It's totally, you can go look it up if you want to, or it's totally a thing. So we've been using it, and so it's really not far of a stretch, because you look at where, when did it stop? When did we stop using body parts to make our medicine or to have it be a part of culture? Well, there never
Or
was
have
or have we stopped? Exactly. It just got more silenced and pushed under the rug. And so, but now, due to the internet and things like this, we can talk about these things. But I wanted to ask you about your other section on your website called Geomancy. It's one of the 7 sacred sciences of the Renaissance period. You had hydromancy, geomancy, aromancy, scalpomancy, necromancy, and palmistry, I think, are the 7 Renaissance magics. And I love it. I love that. Like I said, I got the book right here, Magic in the Middle Ages. Like, it super fascinates me. But what is geomancy to you? And how do you go about using it?
Well, geomancy for me is the art of placement. So it's another form using dowsing. You can ask, where is in the highest good for me to build my house? Or is it in the highest good for me to live in England or America? So when my mom died and I no longer had a reason to stay in New Hampshire, I started dowsing. Where would it be on planet Earth in my highest good to live? And there was a part of Cornwall. I thought, oh man, I love Cornwall. That would be fun. And it said no. So I came back and I dowsed a map of the Earth, and I dowsed America, and I got North Carolina.
Wow.
Now, why I got that, I have no idea, but I followed it. And I came down here to the Asheville area in Black Mountain. I rented a cabin and lived in it for a year. And then I bought a little, kind of cabin-like primitive house up in the mountains. And I come here every winter. So I love North Carolina. And maybe I ought to stay here full time. I've been here full time through the COVID 2 years, but I still have a home in New Hampshire as well. So, where geomancy is not only where is it in the highest good for me to be, but where is it in the highest good if I'm going to build something? Where should the front door be? So when I go to someone's land and they're wanting to build, I can dowse for the highest good of this family, the front door and the heart of the house, which is either the heat, like your furnace, the fireplace, or the kitchen stove. It all has to do with heat. If you love cooking and you're a great chef, then that may be the place that is the heart of the house, is the kitchen stove. Oh, I gotta turn that off. But anyway, so the heart of the house could be the stove, or it could be the fireplace or whatever. I don't know how to turn this.
Oh, the
stupid
hearth.
thing off.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's the hearth of the home, right? That's interesting.
The heart. Yes, it's all. Yep.
So what physical tools are used in geomancy? Is it all just spiritual and in the ether, or what type of communication tools are there for geomancy?
Well, I use dowsing.
Dowsing is 100% a tool. Okay, that makes sense. That completely went over my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I use that's it. And a lot of geomancers, that's what they use. I don't know who doesn't use a dowsing, but they may use quote intuition, which is another way of reading from your body what's right for the question that you ask. So you need to be very, very precise. So if someone is building a housing development, that's a different question than if they're building their home. So for their home, you want to have it, the energy of the earth feed that particular person or that particular family. So you want to know where to place it. If it's a development, that's another situation. I don't usually work with those, but yeah. There was one guy who hired me to dowse for a well. He said he was building a farm up in Vermont. He bought a whole side of a ridge, and I drove up and I checked it out, and I kept finding water veins, but none of them were willing to come to the surface. So I thought, something's weird. This is strange. I found 3 different veins. They said, no. So I went back to the guy and I said, okay, what are you planning to do with this land? He said, oh, I'm going to have a farm. I said, no, you're not. No, you're not. And he said, well, what? What do you mean? I said, no, none of the water is willing to come to the surface. If you were building a farm, they'd all be happy to feed your farm, but you're not. So what are you doing? Oh, yeah. And he kind of hedged around. And I said, okay, tell me what you're doing. Well, that's it. And he said, well, I'm going to put 8 houses up along this ridge. So you're building a housing development? And he said, yes. And I said, well, you know what? You're not going to get any water. So you're going to lose every penny you put into this land. My advice to you is to sell this land to someone who might want to build a farm, and you go buy a place that wants to be a housing development. And he looked at me and I said, you're going to lose everything because you're not getting any water. And I got in my car and I drove away.
Wow.
I don't know what he ended up doing, but it's like, had that water been willing to come to the surface, then what he was planning to do would have been accepted by the earth. And it wasn't. And he lied to me. And I said, I don't dowse for people who lie to me.
Yeah,
I don't want
absolutely.
your dirty money.
Absolutely. No, I was reading on dowsing and some historical text because trying to find, the use of it, and it goes, like we were talking about earlier, it goes all the way back. Moses definitely was a dowser. He had dowsing tools, the staffs, the rods, Egyptians, even potential the ankh, right?
The rod and the staff will, support you. Yeah, that's true. That's all dowsing tools.
Absolutely. And where was I going with that? Detective work. So I was some of the stories I was reading about it is what they would do is they would actually try to use dowsing rods to find a murderer in a room of victims,
Right. Yep. Well, one of the things that I was taught by someone who worked with police, he was an old-time dowser, never, ever, ever dowse and go tell the police who did it. Because if they didn't ask you to dowse, you're going to know too much information not to have been the one who did it. So
automatic suspect.
Top of the list suspect because you know too much. So only dowse when they ask you to do it. You can volunteer, tell them you're a dowser and you're willing to try to help with this. If they take you up, go do it. But if they say no, don't do it. No, you're going to know too much, and only the person who did it could know that much.
That's hilarious, but also great advice.
Yeah, be careful.
I'm surprised there hasn't been like with all the detective and cop shows that people love to watch that have been famous for, decades now. Like I'm surprised there's not a dowsing 5-0, like like they have like psychic shows where they do psychic stuff, but there's never been a specific dowser, and I think there's something to that because dowsing is still used in the higher echelons of magic and geomancy, and these things are kind of hidden. But I wanted to talk to you. I have like 3 main questions as we're starting our descent here. So one, the shape of your dowsing tool there that I saw looked almost like a chestnut or a nut.
Oh, this one. Oh, yes. These were given out when I led the co-directed the Dowsing School for the National Convention for about 6 years. And one of the old dowsers would make these and give them to the school, so that these were the dowsing. They were nuts, like an acorn. It's just he carved them, and they
Yeah.
were what we gave to anyone who took the dowsing school from the national convention.
I love
So
that.
yeah, that's where I got this one. But you can douse with anything. This is just a blue crystal. It doesn't matter. My mom was at a party, and she reached in her pocket to get her pendulum to douse for someone,
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't bring it. So she reached over and took a wet tea bag and doused with that. Yeah,
Oh, reading
so
tea leaves. That's a whole other meaning to reading tea
it's
leaves.
another whole thing too, but she just used, because the weight of the water in the tea bag made it possible to use it as a dowsing tool. So it doesn't have to be fancy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that. You can, these are L rods.
Oh yeah, that's more of what I visualize with the dowsing rod right there.
Yeah. Now, they're very special. You see, the widths to the lengths and then no, I cut them the length that fits in my pocketbook. It's not sacred geometry. It could be, but I don't. The big long ones that go out, another 6 inches, they're too long for me. I can't lug them around. So these are the ones I use.
Wow. Do you custom made those, or you bought them and then cut them to the one that you wanted size?
I make them. You can get a brazing rod. This is bronze, but you can get metal, any kind of metal brazing rods.
Do you sell rods and tools?
I have been, but I've been having trouble getting enough materials. The latest one I had to get for the handles is now aluminum, because I can't get the copper.
Oh no.
It's gone way off the charts. I would have to charge $40 for a set.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy. So I charge 15.
I'm gonna be grabbing a couple pairs from you then. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
the one I just got the materials. I just got the materials to build the ones with aluminum handles, but they're all anything that allows it to move. You can make them out of coat hangers, and then use an old ballpoint pen. Just take that apart, and you've got the handle, and then just slide it in, bend it, make sure it's straight and the end, so it won't fall off, and you got your rods.
That's beautiful. What's funny is they're L rods, and so that reminds me of L, the sacred letter L. L
That's
is
right.
the angle, the shape to love, like we're talking about the heartbeat of love, the labyrinth, and it's beautiful symbology right there. I'm going to definitely be getting a pair from you, because after the season of California, I'm going to be finishing up on the farm here, and then I'm driving to Florida, to where I have family down in Florida, and I'm going to be working on their gator farm and fan boat company. I'm going to be doing bog rides, but I want to have a
Where
pair.
are they located?
Down at Kissimmee.
Kissimmee.
South of Orlando.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's basically Kissimmee is just almost like a suburb of Orlando. It's maybe 20 minutes away.
It's on the coast though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's closer to the coast. Yeah. My family has this it's called Boggy Creek. Okay. And they've had their fan boat company for years. They started with one boat, and now they have 10. And it's a beautiful community out there. They have a campground, a restaurant, a bar. Okay. They just started a butterfly pyramid thing.
Oh, butterfly farm.
Butterfly farm.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And they got the gator farm. So I'm really excited. And looking at Buckminster Fuller's maps, well, just outside of Florida is a huge energy ley line point. And I think that's why this whole area it has so much history with pirates and the pirate lore and navigation and dowsing and geomancy. So navigation on boat. and what people need to understand is that there was all of the magic intertwined into navigating the waters. You're
Exactly.
working with the air, you're working with water, you are working with earth, you're working with magnetics, and you're working with all of the natural forces.
And you're working with the non-physical forces because you're already there. Your aura everywhere. So when you're in a boat and you want to know the safest way to get somewhere, use your dowsing rods. It'll point. Just keep on track. Go where it's pointing.
Is that what a compass is?
Yes.
Wow.
A compass just tells you north, south, east, west, with the electromagnetics of the earth. Well, that changes. It's changed so much. I was in an airplane going to California, and they had to reroute themselves 3 different ways before we got there because their compass was screwed because the earth was changing and the north moved. So
why would they be fixed? Why do we think they north, south, east, west, 1, 2, 3, 4 would be a fixed, never moving thing? We need to erase that from our understanding.
Well, it keeps moving. It moves slower, but and that's dowsing it'll give you north. If you ask, please point which way is north from where I'm sitting. Behind me, that way. Back
Oh,
there.
wow.
That's
oh.
Yeah. So you can just ask, it'll point north. But when you're in the woods and you want to get back to your car, don't ask for the shortest route. You'll be going over a cliff or something. Ask for the safest route back to your car, and then it'll lead you around the drop-offs and the lakes. You can't walk across water easily.
Oh, that
so
is
the question's
beautiful.
really important. Yeah,
That is
question's
beautiful.
important.
There's tales of the old dowsing rods and how they were, one piece, and they would
Y
have
rod. Yeah.
Y rods. Okay.
Yeah, Y rod is a cut branch off a tree. That's what my grandpa used. But I don't use them because I don't like cutting off all these branches. It has to be flexible, and it has to be. It can't be an old dried out stick. It has to be so that it bends. So you hold it and you put pressure on it, and then the end of it can bob up and down real fast. So you hold it and you turn, and when you get your yes, it'll point down where the water is. If you're asking for water, if you're holding it under pressure and you turn around this way and you want to know which is the fastest route to the kitchen, so you go like that, and all of a sudden it drops down. That's it.
Wow.
That's the way you go. Yeah.
And there's no handles or anything. It's just in your hands. It's just a.
Yeah, you take it's a stem, and it's got 2 branches that coming off that stem. So it's the end of the thing where it has these branches, and you grab the branches and the end is still sticking out, and of course you cut it off, so it's like 6 or 8 inches, and you hold that, and the branches come out this way, but you want to put them under pressure, so you turn them outward, and you can feel, and then this point on the end, the branch itself, the stick, it's flexible because it's under that pressure that you've turned your hands out and you put the pressure on it.
Was there a more traditional type of tree that was used, or is there a more traditional type of wood that was used?
It could be apple, or what was the other one that Grandpa used? It had to be flexible. If you use pine, it'll break. So certain trees, you don't want to use their branches, but apple trees work real good. They're real flexible. Yeah.
Wow.
That's what Grandpa liked, the apple.
That's so cool. That gives a whole other piece of history to the apple or the Johnny Appleseed story, because he was like supposedly planting all these apple trees, all these places, and that could be another hint to dowsing or ancient, some sort of crypt, the Freemasons and all of those like secret societies that came over here and tried to start America were into dowsing, undoubtedly, and into these different magical practices. So they were hidden throughout different cryptic stories or ciphers and things like that. And that stuff fascinates me. I wanted to
Yeah.
to talk to you about the magnets and dowsing. Is there any like practices that that use magnets or magnetite or stones? I know you, and you're building your labyrinth to use stones, but I didn't know if there's something correlation to the minerals that you use.
I don't. I haven't. I think that's um I think that's too complicated.
Mm-hmm.
I, I don't know what the magnets are going to do, or if the magnets will take on somebody else's
Mm-hmm.
intention
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
isn't yours. I mean, I've seen labyrinths where, oh, you put a magnet at every turning point and then bullshit. Keep it clean, keep it simple.
Okay.
It's just like in dowsing, the cleaner, the simpler, the more exacting your question, the better the answers you get. If you complicate it, then no, I wouldn't complicate it. It doesn't, it's not
Yeah.
needed. And
Absolutely.
it may bring something on that you don't want to have anything to do with. I don't know how ETs use magnets. I don't know whether they're attracted to electromagnetic energy in a way that I am. I don't know who's going to influence me. Just like I don't know what those cell towers are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what 5G is going to do to us. I don't think it's good. I keep getting, keep away from it. But, who's going to use it to track you? I mean, all of these weird stuff. So keep it simple in a way works. That's all.
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
don't
Good. I love that
don't
answer.
mess.
That's fantastic. No, it really is. I mean, because like I said, there's all these crypts and ciphers and complications. And, funny enough, those all start with the letter C, and C is a letter that it just means secret. So, anyways, uh, that's interesting. Yeah. The magnets, I guess I was almost trying to allude to this, the floating rock that you were talking about earlier. There's a lot of folklore and myth behind these ancient sacred sites being places where they had magnetic energy, and that's how.
Well, they can often, but often they call the electromagnetic Earth grid magnetic because it's electromagnetic energy,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not magnets.
Mm-hmm.
Those stones are granite, and granite is not a magnet,
Mm-hmm.
but they're on the electromagnetic energy of the Earth. So they complicate what magnet is or an electromagnetic is
Uh-huh.
and how it's being used. The ancients knew how to use the Earth energies.
Mm-hmm.
I
Very
don't know
much.
whether they called it electromagnetic or what they called it. I don't
Oh,
care.
for sure.
They
Yeah.
knew how to use it, and they wrote it. They could fly over with it. All that stuff with the giant sculptures on the Earth. I mean, you can't see them unless you're flying. How did they do that? They rode the energy lines. So these things happen, but I don't know. I don't know. It's a real study, and I appreciate your studying, but don't let it all go to physical. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
It's so little of it is physical. We use physical stuff to enhance the non-physical.
This
We're
is
here
so
in
true.
physical form,
Mm-hmm.
but we are not physical beings. Right. So when this body goes, I'm not going with it. I'm going somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just going to put me in the boat and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm still here. I am not the voice in my head. I'm the one who listens to it.
That's
I
right.
hear it. It's not me. So all of that intelligence, all of that we learn in school and we learn from each other and we discover by exploring everything. I mean, that's curiosity. That's what we're here for, is to learn and explore and get excited and discover all these things and bring our love to the whole process. I think that's our job. So if you're not enjoying it, you're not bringing love to it, don't do it. And if you're not learning from it and getting curious and having fun, don't do it.
Yeah.
You see, unless you knew it. couple extra dollars or something, but no.
I mean, then you call in to Michael, and you say, "Hey, dowse with your angels, right?" And talk to those higher entities. Well, that's a beautiful, like, honestly, segue. Is this heartbeat of love to connect to Earth and to have realness come from that? I think that's a really good takeaway from this conversation and this topic. And I guess as a closing question, to really just throw it back all to the paranormal stuff that we've been talking about, have you had any experiences? Have you seen, anything interesting that you might consider paranormal?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. I mean, you walk into the woods and somebody's with you. You
Mm,
know they're there. Sometimes you see them, sometimes you just feel them being there. I have a gnome and two gnomes.
mm-hmm,
Everybody's got
mm-hmm.
two gnomes, the densest of the angelic realm, and they come in with you. And Leaf and Sasha are their names, and they hang out with me. And when I fly to England, Leaf will ride, but Sasha won't. She says the movies are too boring. And when I get there, she shows up. She didn't need an airplane to get there, right?
Oh,
So,
wow.
so, so I have all of these spiritual beings, and I've been in places where I've seen spiritual beings. I've felt the presence. I've seen the lights. I've seen all kinds of stuff. I've chased UFOs. I've driven after them, trying to catch them. I mean,
Let's talk
all
about
kinds
that.
of things that we do. Yeah, really, they're wonderful. Yeah, I went to one place way back. I was driving from UNH back to Newport, New Hampshire, up through the mountains, and I saw this UFO, and I just went crazy trying to catch it. And it went over some trees, and I went up, and all of a sudden I was going up this road the way I normally cut the back roads to get home, and all my hair stood up.
Oh.
I just went like this, and I got scared, and I drove home, and I woke up in the morning, like I could hardly sleep, and I got, just daylight. I got in my car and I drove back down that road to see what it was, and there was a turning, a little like a dirt tractor thing, and I stopped and I walked into a big open field, and there was a burn mark, huge burn mark where the UFO had been sitting. And that's what I felt. And I got terrified. My spirits all said, don't go there. And they scared me. They made my hair stand up so I wouldn't go explore what was going on over there, because I wasn't supposed to be near those ETs. But I saw where it had landed, because it burnt a mark in the hay, in the, squished the grass down, and there was
It's a
big round
that's a
circle.
common thing, and when people find where UFOs have landed, there's generally some sort of like burn mark or scorch mark of sorts.
Yeah,
Super
it's
fascinating.
big.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I was going to a poetry reading at UNH, and I was driving there, and there was a cigar-shaped UFO flying just above the trees down Main Street of Durham, New Hampshire. So I'm driving down, following it, and I had a friend with me. And I said, "Wow!" And so I chased it, and it went off the back roads, and I knew the roads because my sister lived back there. So I went speeding down these roads, about 55, 60 miles an hour on a road you shouldn't go 30, and trying to catch up with it. And I got to within 2 car lengths of it. And my friend freaked out. She said she was going to open the door and jump out. Well, that would have killed her. So I stopped, and it just kept going. We went back to the poetry reading. Everybody at the poetry reading had seen it.
Whoa.
So everybody knew that it had gone over. So, so verification, yeah.
Yeah.
All these, yeah.
Oh wow. Are you there's another Marty Cain on the internet that is like associated with poetry and does his
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was you or not. It's let me see. Yeah, the rural avant-garde mapping contemporary US poetry collectives outside the metropolis. and it's got martycain.com, Ithaca, New York, Marty Cain curriculum. But it's a man, actually.
Oh yeah, short for Martin, probably.
Yeah, and so it was just funny because I was going to ask you, because it was almost kind of talking about ancient maps and history of maps, which is almost kind of correspondent to dowsing and ley lines and earth and geomancy. And then you just brought up the poetry things now, and I was like, I was going to ask her if she's the Marty Cain that I was reading about, because, but no, that's that right there. I just want to say, I've been wrapping my head around archetypes, understand like the celestial code, the cosmic code of names, and somehow how subconsciously we fulfill these roles that almost have a homage to what our name is. And now when I think about your name and I think about Cain, right? I think about a dowsing rod, I think about a staff, I think about a cane, and a Marty, I think about a mark, I think about marching, I think about almost marching around and marking with a cane and dowsing, and so then I find that you do that, and then this other Marty Cain that is someone completely unrelated is looking up ancient maps and tracking these ancient navigators, and I'm like, that's like a name archetype. So it fits right into this thing I'm seeing while doing research, that there's some sort of role being filled that we.
Now there's another connection. I'm not good with words. I speak well, but I don't write well. I mean, I've written, but that's not my forte. I'm a visual artist, so I do drawings, paintings, and sculptures. He's a poet. So he does creative work as well. So maybe the Marty Cain has something to do with being creative.
Yes.
Creating music, making something visible for other people to see that they wouldn't see without you. And that's what poetry does. I have a real dear friend, Stephen Ratina, from Cambridge or Boston area, and in Massachusetts, and he's an incredible poet, and we used to do projects together, so he'd do the poetry and I'd do the art, and we did all kinds of stuff together. So
wow.
So that maybe it has to do with creativity. I don't know. I've never put my name in those terms, like it designates something. But with this other person with the same name, and he's doing creative work, it's curious. And he's curious about the ancient maps and stuff. So it goes back to Cain and Abel, what happened in the early days. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, no, Cain and Abel. I mean, just to tie it back into that little subvert that we went on earlier about vampires, that's a story. It's a vampiric type of story, and Romulus and Remus, that the founders of Rome, that their mother was a wolf in the forest, and then they were found, and they have the same kind of stories as Cain and Abel. It's like there's this battle between the vampires or the cannibals or the werewolves, and then to us with the heartbeat, and it's like this, but it's almost hermetic in the sense that they need each other for that balance, and that it will always be there, that there is like this type of like sucking energy, and there's a type of fulfilling energy, and together, when they come together, they create the existence and reality in that toroid that is there. And so like it's like, we got to fight the bad guys, we got to do this, and the bad guys are like, we got to conquer these these wimps or whatever, and it's just like, and it's always going on, and nobody ever wins. They don't win, we don't win. It's the existence between the two that is needed and necessary to make the reality somehow. So I don't know, but it's mind-blowing.
I don't know. It is mind-blowing. It's like day and night. It's like black and white. It's like contrast. We need some kind of contrast to keep growing. Maybe that's what it's about. I don't
yeah. Dude,
they can make you really mad.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez. Wow. Well, I love this. Thank you
Okay,
so
so
much.
I gotta meet you. So where you're going to be in Florida, right?
Yes.
My sister's in a elderly support home in
Hmm.
Leesburg, Florida, and she has a trailer that we both own in Leesburg. So I go down
Leesburg.
there. Yeah, Leesburg is sort of north in the middle of the state, and it's in the water district, water, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And it's north of what's that big city that you mentioned?
Orlando.
Orlando. It's north of Orlando by about an hour and a half, maybe.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. There's
Yeah.
so much history in Florida. After I went there for my
Oh,
first time, I, growing up on the West Coast, you hear all these stories about Florida, and it's got all so on and so forth. It has all these, negative connotations around it for whatever reason. And
yeah.
I hadn't been there until this last year. I went to go finally visit some family, and the
Mhm.
second that I touched down, it was automatic. I felt that it was a very special place, not outside of all the money and the Disney worlds and all that. The land itself was incredibly special, and the humidity, I
Yeah.
actually thoroughly enjoyed the humidity. I was like, I don't mind water. This is great. I like water, so I get water. This is amazing. And we know that water and energies and the elementals, are able to flow throughout, and it's a denser energy. It's really interesting. But North Carolina is another very fascinating place. I have family that grew up outside of oy, 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 oy. Raleigh. Yeah.
Raleigh, right.
Hmm. So I've been.
That's not far from Black Mountain. That's about an hour drive. It's not bad. But
I.
it's on the flat. Raleigh's more on the flat country, and Black Mountain is in the mountains.
Oh,
So
wow.
my
Way up
house is
there.
up a dirt road. It's 4 miles up a dirt road on the mountainside. Yeah.
Seems
Yeah,
like you
it's
got some good
wonderful.
internet though. That's okay.
Oh yeah, I can see the tower. That's the only reason I get it. Other people on the back side of the mountain don't get it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you doused it. They doused you out pretty well on that. That's good.
I get directed, I let yeah, Michael says buy that house, right?
Did
Yeah.
you use? Yeah, of course you use dowsing to find your house.
Yeah.
Do you love it? Do you love your home?
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. There's a lot of new people moving up, and I'm not so sure because they're not friendly. And they'll drive by. We had a little tiny dirt road. You
Hmm.
have to pass each other in specific places because it's too narrow. And if you go off it, you drop down 200 feet, right? So we're in the mountains, and they don't even wave when they go by. I mean, they're not part of wanting to be a community.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how long I'm gonna live here. I don't know. We'll
How
see.
it's so cool to see someone of your age and valor to be able to just be like, you know what? I'm not gonna be here forever. Who knows how long I'll be here? I might, move somewhere else. That's
Yeah. Well,
is rooted in a lot of people that they cannot leave because they have all these responsibilities. I don't condone that. People can do whatever they want. I absolutely find that okay, but the freedom of letting yourself live to the energies and be able to move freely is so important. And don't feel locked down. Don't feel like you can't go anywhere. You need to go and travel and have these experiences in order to be able to find more of yourself and to feel more of yourself and to find out the
well,
true answers and optimization.
that's right. And if you're an earth being, anywhere on the earth is okay. So you choose where on the earth you want to be. You're
That's
an
so
earth
true.
being, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Oh goodness. Well, do you want to
Listen,
let the good people know where they can find
oh, yes.
you, plug any of your books, your works, and any final messages for our listeners here?
Yeah. Well, my ladies' notes housing is everything you need to know and real simple. So it's straightforward. It's like $15, I guess. It's a book, but
Hmm.
it's not. It's all paper. It's cheap.
A
but
lady's
good.
notes on dowsing. Get that
Right.
book. Have it in your workhouse, because it's a simple document explaining on how to use these energies, which we all need.
Yep. How to make your own tools, how to use them, what to look out for. It's just thorough, but simple. It's just straightforward. And I sell it. If you want to write to me, email me, Marty at martycain@protonmail.com, and I can answer your questions. I can dowse, distance dowsing. I do a lot of that. I don't do well dowsing at a distance because it needs to be precise. But if you want me to double check someone who's dowsed for you, that's good. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, those all sound like amazing things, and I know we have listeners in that part of the country. So if you guys are over there in North Carolina, in that area, then try to contact Marty and see if you can learn some of these great skills, because it's something that we need to, as a community, keep
Well,
spreading.
we have a local dowsing group, the Appalachian Dowsers, and so we haven't been meeting. We have picnics that we meet at, but we haven't been having our monthly meetings because of COVID. But we're going to eventually start back again. But they have a good website. We're also connected with Arizona, and they're dowsing, and they have a speaker every month, and you can plug in to listen to their lectures. So check out the Appalachian
Wow.
Dowsers.com.
I'll try to
Yeah,
put
so
that in the show notes too. I'll put Marty Cain, and I'll put the Appalachian Dowsers. Definitely.
yeah, because they have it's a real good resource. Yep.
Oh, so cool. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Marty, so much. It's a pleasure. And I hope that we get to chat again on the show. And Fire Tribe, you guys, if you guys didn't like this episode, it's an automatic classic. You're going to need to re-listen to it again to ensure that you did love it. And I'm sure you did. Much love to everybody out there. Thank you again, Marty. It's a
I've
pleasure.
enjoyed it so much. Mhm.